Anxiety is one of the most common psychological experiences in the world. But many people don't fully understand what's actually happening in the brain when they feel anxious. It's more than just feeling stressed or worried. It's a deeply rooted biological response designed to protect us from danger, even if that danger isn't real. When you experience anxiety, your brain is essentially sounding an alarm, preparing your body to respond to a perceived threat. This is part of a survival mechanism called the fight or flight response, which has been hardwired into our biology for thousands of years. The process starts in a part of the brain called the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons that acts like an emotional processing center. The amygdala is responsible for detecting threats and signaling your body to prepare for action. When the amygdala senses something it interprets as dangerous, even if it's just a thought or a stressful situation, it triggers a cascade of signals throughout the brain and body. This activation sets off the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which are meant to help you either confront the threat or escape from it. In the past, this mechanism was vital for survival when humans faced physical dangers, like wild animals or hostile environments. Today, our brains still use this same system, but it often overreacts to modern stressors such as work deadlines, social situations, or uncertainty about the future. The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and impulse control, also plays a big role in anxiety. Ideally, the prefrontal cortex would assess the situation and calm the amygdala down if the threat isn't real. However, in moments of anxiety, this rational part of the brain can become less active, making it harder to think clearly and logically. This is why anxiety often feels overwhelming and hard to control. Your brain's fear center is working overtime, while the logical part of your mind is struggling to keep up. Over time, if this system is constantly activated, your brain can become hypersensitive to perceived threats, making you more prone to anxiety in everyday life. Another important player in the experience of anxiety is the hippocampus, the part of the brain that processes memories and context. The hippocampus works closely with the amygdala, helping to determine whether something is truly dangerous or just a false alarm based on past experiences. In people with high anxiety, the hippocampus may become overactive or less effective, meaning the brain struggles to properly evaluate threats. This can lead to heightened fear responses even when there's no actual danger, creating a cycle of worry and fear that feels hard to break. Neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that allow neurons to communicate, also influence anxiety. The neurotransmitter gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, acts as the brain's natural calming agent, helping to quiet overactive neurons. Low levels of GABA can make it harder for the brain to calm down after a perceived threat, contributing to anxiety symptoms. Serotonin, another important neurotransmitter, affects mood regulation and emotional stability, and imbalances in serotonin levels are closely tied to anxiety disorders. Dopamine, which influences motivation and reward, can also play a role, as anxiety can disrupt the brain's reward system, making it harder to feel pleasure or focus on positive experiences. Physiologically, when anxiety kicks in, the sympathetic nervous system activates, increasing heart rate, quickening breathing, and sharpening senses. These changes are designed to prepare your body for rapid action, but when there is no real danger, they can feel distressing. You might notice your hands shaking, your chest tightening, or your stomach churning, all because your body is bracing for a fight that isn't coming. This is why anxiety often feels like something physical, not just emotional. It's a full-body reaction to a signal sent from your brain. Chronic anxiety can actually reshape the brain over time. Constant activation of the amygdala and the stress response can lead to structural changes, like increased activity in areas that process fear and decreased activity in areas responsible for logic and reasoning. Long-term exposure to cortisol, the stress hormone, can affect memory formation, decision-making, and even the size of certain brain regions, particularly the hippocampus. This can create a feedback loop where the brain becomes more reactive to stress, which in turn leads to more anxiety. It's important to note that anxiety is not just a mental state, it's deeply tied to the body. Through the nervous system, the vagus nerve, which runs from the brainstem down through the body, is a key player in calming the body after stress. When your brain interprets danger, the vagus nerve helps regulate breathing, heart rate, and digestion, but in anxious individuals, this system may not function as smoothly. This explains why deep breathing, meditation, and relaxation techniques often help with anxiety. They directly stimulate the vagus nerve and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming the body down. Another fascinating aspect of anxiety is how the brain learns fear through conditioning. If you experience something stressful or traumatic, your brain can link certain places, people, or situations with danger. This process, called fear conditioning, is deeply embedded in the amygdala and hippocampus. Over time, your brain may overgeneralize, triggering anxiety in situations that aren't actually dangerous. For example, if you felt anxious during a presentation at work, you might start feeling anxious just walking into the office, even if nothing bad is happening. This shows how anxiety isn't always based on logic. It's often a learned response your brain is trying to protect you with, even if it's misguided. Anxiety also interacts closely with the default mode network, DMN, a group of brain regions that becomes active when you're not focused on a specific task. The DMN is heavily involved in daydreaming, self-reflection, and thinking about the future. In people with anxiety, this network is often overactive, leading to rumination and constant worrying. Instead of helping you plan for the future, the DMN traps you in a cycle of what-if scenarios, which can intensify anxious thoughts and make them harder to escape. What's especially interesting is that anxiety is not inherently bad. It evolved to keep humans alive. In small doses, anxiety sharpens attention, increases awareness, and prepares you for challenges. However, in the modern world, where threats are often more psychological than physical, this ancient survival system can become maladaptive. Our brains are still wired for a time when danger meant predators or environmental hazards, not social rejection, financial stress, or overwhelming news cycles. This mismatch between evolution and modern life is one of the reasons anxiety has become such a widespread issue today. The role of genetics in anxiety is another key factor to consider. Studies have shown that anxiety disorders often run in families, and genetics can account for a significant portion of a person's susceptibility to anxiety. Variations in genes that regulate serotonin and other neurotransmitters can make some people more prone to developing anxiety, especially when combined with environmental stressors. However, genetics alone don't determine your mental health. Life experiences, trauma, upbringing, and coping mechanisms all shape how anxiety develops and manifests in each individual. Early life experiences play a powerful role in shaping the brain's response to stress. Childhood trauma, neglect, or even inconsistent caregiving can cause heightened sensitivity in the amygdala and stress systems, making someone more vulnerable to anxiety later in life. Conversely, supportive relationships and safe environments during childhood can help build resilience. This interplay between nature and nurture is why two people can experience the same stressful situation, but react very differently. Your brain's wiring is shaped not only by your DNA, but also by your experiences and the environment you grow up in. Social anxiety offers another layer of insight into how the brain processes fear. When you feel anxious in social settings, the amygdala is again a central player. But research shows that socially anxious individuals often have heightened activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region involved in error detection and self-awareness. This may explain why socially anxious people are hyper-aware of their behavior and overly sensitive to how others perceive them. The brain is essentially scanning for social threats, like embarrassment or rejection, just as it would scan for physical danger. This overlap between social and physical threats illustrates how deeply ingrained anxiety is in human survival instincts. Being excluded from a group was once a matter of life or death for early humans. Anxiety may feel overwhelming, but understanding how it works in your brain is the first step to taking back control. The good news is that your brain is incredibly adaptable. Just as anxiety can rewire your neural pathways to overreact to stress, consistent effort and the right techniques can rewire your brain to respond with calm and resilience. One of the most powerful tools for reducing anxiety is mindfulness. By training yourself to focus on the present moment, rather than spiraling into what-if scenarios, you weaken the overactivity of the amygdala and strengthen the prefrontal cortex, allowing your rational mind to regain control. Simple practices like mindful breathing, body scans, and meditation for even 5-10 minutes a day can have measurable effects on the brain, lowering cortisol levels and increasing activity in areas responsible for emotional regulation. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is another scientifically proven method for addressing anxiety. CBT works by challenging anxious thoughts and gradually teaching your brain new, healthier ways of interpreting situations. Over time, your brain learns that many of the perceived threats are not actually dangerous, breaking the cycle of fear conditioning. Exposure therapy, a form of CBT, also helps the brain reprogram its responses by safely and gradually facing the things that trigger anxiety. These approaches may sound intimidating at first, but they are deeply empowering because they show you that anxiety is not a life sentence. It's a pattern that can be changed. Physical health also plays a significant role in calming anxiety. Exercise helps burn off excess adrenaline, boosts dopamine and serotonin levels, and promotes neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to change and grow. Sleep is equally important. Lack of rest makes the amygdala more reactive and the prefrontal cortex less effective, worsening anxiety symptoms. Even basic steps like eating nutrient-rich foods, reducing caffeine, and staying hydrated can create a noticeable difference in how your body and brain handle stress. Another powerful tool is learning to regulate your nervous system through techniques like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and activating the vagus nerve. Practices such as yoga, tai chi, or even humming and singing stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which tells your body it's safe to relax. These aren't just feel-good tips. They're backed by neuroscience and can literally reshape the way your brain and body respond to fear. Social connection is also essential. Humans are wired for relationships, and isolation tends to magnify anxiety. Talking openly about your struggles with trusted friends, family, or a mental health professional can help regulate your emotions and remind your brain that you are safe. Therapy, support groups, and even online communities can provide a sense of belonging and validation. That's crucial for recovery. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and self-awareness. Medication can also play a role for some individuals. Anti-anxiety medications or antidepressants like SSRIs can help rebalance neurotransmitters and give your brain the stability it needs to heal. While medication is not always necessary, it can be a valuable tool alongside therapy, lifestyle changes, and self-care practices. What's important is finding a personalized approach that works for you, as anxiety is not a one-size-fits-all condition. If you're someone living with anxiety right now, know that you are not broken. Anxiety is your brain's way of trying to protect you, even if it feels unbearable at times. Every heartbeat, every surge of adrenaline, every racing thought is your mind's attempt to keep you safe. It just needs guidance to do so in a healthier way. With patience, support, and persistence, you can retrain your brain and reclaim your peace of mind. The The same neuroplasticity that allowed anxiety to take root also gives you the ability to heal. Even in your darkest moments, remember that millions of people around the world have walked this path and found peace again. Anxiety is not your identity. It's a temporary state that can be managed and transformed. Every small step you take to care for your mental health is a victory, no matter how insignificant it might feel. Courage is not about never feeling afraid. It's about showing up and moving forward even when fear is present. You are stronger than you realize, and every day you choose to keep going is proof of your resilience. Your journey with anxiety is not the end of your story. It's a chapter that can lead to growth, strength, and wisdom. Healing is possible, and you deserve it. With the right tools, the right support, and a compassionate attitude toward yourself, you can quiet the storm in your mind and build a life filled with calm, confidence, and hope. You are not alone, and your brain is capable of change. This moment of struggle can be the beginning of your transformation, and your future is brighter than your anxiety wants you to believe.